everybody. I'm Aaron Simmons. This is Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, July 3rd, 2023. And I hope all of you in the United States are enjoying a great Independence Day, July 4th holiday. To those of you in other countries from around the world, I hope that you are also having a wonderful week in whatever way brings you joy. Because I know that most of my viewers are in the United States and all of them are probably either at the lake already or heading there as we speak, I wanted to do just a really short video this week to talk about the relation between patriotism, nationalism, and democracy. This idea actually has been something I've been thinking through sort of informally for probably nearly 20 years. It all started when I had a professor of mine in grad school say to me that continental philosophers, or generally existential or deconstructive sorts of folks like myself, that we needed to find a way to think about patriotism without the legacy of nationalism. Now, I think this is actually a productive idea and an important project, an important thought experiment, because people like Jacques Derrida, who are not exactly known for talking about things like patriotism, he says in a book called The Other Heading that there's an important reason why he would be basically patriotic about being a European. And his reasoning is because it would be the democratic European space, that history, that heritage, that would always call him to task whenever he was not sufficiently aware of being critical of his own failure to be democratic enough. In other words, as we've talked about in other videos on Derrida's notion of the democracy to come, one of the reasons that we might be patriotic is because we recognize that our country or our regional location is something that actually has a commitment to the hospitality, the moral engagement, the relationships to others, the investment in the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the marginalized, etc., that those commitments can actually be grounding values for a society. And so when Derrida suggests that this is what he would be referencing if he says, I am proud of my being European, the same I think is true for those of us, say, in America. When we say that our founding principles are, though problematic in all sorts of logistical ways, they are also committed to this relational investment, this hospitality, this invitation. In other words, our democracy requires that we realize we are never democratic enough and we always have more work to do. Now, that said, nationalism undermines that very democratic investment. Nationalism is the idea that we are the best, everything else is lesser, and that shuts down the self-critical investment that makes possible the democracy always looking to be more democratic. We're already perfect. We're already good enough. We're already at the apex of the moral and social ladder. If we instead say that part of democracy is this inherent self-critical awareness that always calls us to be hospitable to the ideas and suggestions and even scorn of others, that we recognize that the inside-outside distinction is one that actually we hold very tenuously, right? It's the space where we find ourselves inviting challenge so that we can rethink who the we actually is and how it functions. That idea of being invested in patriotism in the name of democracy, where democracy undermines any vestige of nationalism, that seems like something we're celebrating quite a bit. In that sense, this is where on July 4th, I always go back and read, what is July 4th to a slave? Because what we see Frederick Douglass doing in that essay is thinking about what it means to understand the different traditions and different heritages that all are part of the we that then gets so easily gestured toward and also forgotten about. So may we today and tomorrow and the next day be willing to think about the importance of democracy as an invitation to moral living in social contexts, where we are self-critical and radically hospitable. In doing this, I do think there is an important way that we can be patriotic, because we often, many of us, live in spaces who find those histories committed to the very openness, the very hospitality that we want to flourish. Unfortunately, far too often we forget that, celebrate our own grandeur, and shut down the democratic project in the process. I'll see you next time, unless a piano falls on our heads.